Well, this was a real pile of shit. Let's rank this film on the Cageometer.
The most important question of the whole show, I guess we'll start with Vince. Where does Deadfall, 1993, we have to say 1993 because there is a new movie from 2012 called Deadfall that takes over all Google searches because apparently it was a much better movie.
Before we move on, why is the movie called Deadfall?
That is a really good question. I have no goddamn idea.
I tried to find out. I could not. I kept getting the new movie. It was hard to find.
I want to do that for all these movies. Like, why was Grand Isle called Grand Isle? I mean, it takes place in Grand Isle, but it seems like it has nothing to do with the story and why they called it that.
Yeah.
Why is this called Deadfall? I thought maybe like Dead Drop, like, you know, they were doing like there's going to be a Dead Drop featuring in the movie, but there isn't. So I don't know what Deadfall is referring to or why the movie is called Deadfall.
His dad and his uncle both fell when they were shot.
Yeah, but neither one of them died. I guess his uncle died.
We're stretching.
All right, Vince, where does this rank on your Cageometer?
Oh, God. So if we're talking strictly movie, like we're talking script, you know, just strictly movie, leaving Nick Cage out of it, this is a 1 for me, a 1 out of 10.
Wow.
I feel bad. I don't want people to think that this podcast is about beating up on these movies or the acting or anything like that, because it's really more about celebrating Nick Cage and his acting performances. But I just have to say, like, this movie, if it weren't for this podcast, like Nigel said last time, I would not have finished it. I would have just YouTubed the clips for Nick Cage's performance. But the script is all over the place. Michael Bihn's character is just so bland and unaware of everything that's going on around him. He can't make heads or tails about any goddamn thing. But Nick Cage in this movie, I mean, I give him a 6 out of 10 in it. I mean, his performance, like we talked about, like he made a decision, he stuck to it.
Maybe
but
that's
overall, as a movie,
maybe that's something we should do, is actually rank Cage's performance and the overall movie. Like add a category of the for the Cageometer. Because I kind of more rated it for Cage's performance with the movie, kind of like as the shell that holds Nick Cage in it. All right, I guess if we've decided now that Cageometer is we're going to do a movie ranking and a Nick Cage performance ranking. Deadfall broke the mold here. We're gonna change everything here.
Yeah.
So, Vince, where do you rank? Let's do Vince, your rating on both. So, movie and Cage.
So for the movie, I got to give it a 1. And I know that sounds pretty harsh, and I really do believe this. If it were not for Nick Cage and his performance, this movie would be one of the worst films I have ever seen in my life. So saying that, I give this a 6 on the Cage performance level because he was just so over the top, but it worked in such a charming way. I mean, he decided this is how I'm going to play this character, and he never let up until he died, and he just mailed it in there on his death scene. But the rest of it is just over the top, and like you pointed out earlier, you could not take your eyes off of his performance, even when he was just in the background. Just his facial, I mean, he was in character 100% of the time. And I as crazy as the character was, I do admire that about him. I really do admire the fact that he just stuck to his guns the whole time, and it really made his scenes enjoyable.
Yeah. Memorable forever. Like I said, I saw this movie the first time, probably like 10 or 15 years ago, after I saw like an internet meme of like a scene from the movie. And I was like, oh my God, I have to see what that movie is. And then I watched it, and like this performance sticks with you. Like for years, you'll be thinking about this performance. So you have to give that credit. I mean, as shitty as that movie was, this movie would have disappeared into absolute obscurity if it wasn't for Nicolas Cage. So
100%. He is the only reason why you can go Google Deadfall 1993, and you'll find subreddits. If it were not for him, this movie would have been a blink of the eye. Nobody would remember it.
Yeah. Nigel, where does Deadfall fall on your movie Cageometer and Cage performance Cageometer? I'll have to figure out a naming convention of that.
I have very similar feelings to Vince. The movie was awful. Like it was a terrible movie. Like it was slow. The pacing, the plot was just all over the place. It still generally made sense, but it was confusing as you were watching it. So I never really felt like I could fully tell what the hell was going on or was following along with it. I would say if it wasn't for Nicolas Cage and the rest of the cast, because the rest of the cast was actually pretty good. Like there's an all-star cast. And because, like we mentioned, the movie's like a collection of weird cameos of weird eccentric characters. That elevated it a bit for me. I would have given it a 2 out of 10 if it was just on a movie merit. But because of those performances, I bumped it to a 3 out of 10. So it's still terrible. But because of those memorable little vignettes of different characters, it made the movie marginally more enjoyable than if it hadn't had. If I imagine if those were played by no-name actors, it would have just been a complete dull, boring, weird movie that would have just completely been forgotten. But I got to give the movie credit for those scenes, so I'm bumping the rating a bit, but it still sits at a 3 out of 10 for me. As far as Nick Cage's performance, I'm giving that an 8 out of 10 because he is so over the top. Have you seen
Adaptation? I mean,
I have.
You gotta give some room here for some things.
I was gonna say, man.
But the reason I'm giving it that much is because I cannot imagine this movie without that character in it, and I can't imagine that character without Nick Cage playing the character.
Nobody else could have played that character except Nick Cage. I mean, it was unbelievable.
He's introduced right at the right amount of time. It's like right at the tail end of the first act. He's there through the entire second act to pull you and hold your attention through the movie. He obviously put his own spin on the character. Even if he didn't, he still elevated everything else of every scene that he was in. He pulled, as weird of a character as he is, as Eddie is, he made the movie, the middle part of the movie work. Like he was what everything sort of gravitated around. And again, if he wasn't in it, this thing would have just spun off the rails completely and been forgotten, and we wouldn't be talking about it today. So that's why I'm giving it 8 out of 10. And I can't say in good conscience he did a bad job acting as a weird ass, unhinged, psycho,
incredible job. Yes.
So that's why I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 as far as a Cage performance
alien
goes.
Character that he created, nobody else could have
just
done
the part
that.
when he's sitting in the office when he introduces Joe to Lou, and then he sits down and he takes his sunglasses off, and he literally looks like he's just completely zonked out on drugs. If he wasn't completely zonked out on drugs, that performance alone would be an 8 out of 10 just because of how well he sold you that glazed, out of focus, out of reality look that he had.
He did have contact
without
lenses
saying anything.
Because he wanted that look, that drugged out look to him. But still,
it was just so captivating.
The sweat,
even when he's not saying it,
and the dead-eyed stare, and the.
And there's just so many things that he didn't have to add to the character, like you said. The wig and the glasses and the outfit, but. They're there, and I like him freaking out when he can't start the car. I almost wonder if that was unscripted.
That
because
was 100% unscripted.
It comes out of nowhere, and it just fits so well. Like I have a feeling that they just said, "Here's generally what Eddie's going to do in this scene. React to whatever the hell Nick does when he does it," and that's the direction the other characters were given, or the other actors were given.
I really get the sense that he improv'd most of his lines, like that thing that he says to Lou where he calls him a rat, but has the goddamn filthy fucking like all of that. There's no way that was written on a script ever. There's no way anybody sat down and wrote that. There's no way.
That's why I'm so generous with the rating.
On my Cageometer, I'm going to go the movie. I agree with everything you guys have said. 2. I'm gonna give it a 2 because, good Lord, it's boring. I mean, without Nick Cage, this is one of the most boring movies I've ever seen in my life. And like such a just like, okay, we get it. It's a noir story. There's a damsel in distress. Okay. Why is Michael Biehn so just wooden and boring this whole movie when he's been such a great character in so many different movies? He is just wasted in this movie. I mean, it's just like, why did you even get Michael Biehn for this? Why did you hire a real actor to play that character when he's like, he's got nothing to do and there's no real character development? And like, even after he finds out that his dad has been conning him the whole time, like there's no development. There's nothing happens really. It's just kind of like, oh, I'm shocked. All right, well, I'm leaving the game because I finally figured it out. And it's like, he's like all smug at the end and like, what the fuck are you smug about? You got conned completely. Yeah.
That's because he got his memories.
He's got his memories and he's going to walk away from this life. But yeah, so bad. There's little things that are like kind of fun and I might have remembered them later on, like the claw guy. I probably would have thought about that at least once or twice in a couple of weeks after I watched the movie, and never again after that. And Charlie Sheen, I would have been like way back in the 90s, Charlie Sheen was in this really stupid movie that was really boring. And he was kind of the only thing that was interesting about the movie. But then, yeah, it would have been the only interesting thing about the movie if it wasn't for Nick Cage. And I'm going to give him a 7. Same thing, like, he invented a whole human being that didn't exist on this earth until this movie happened. And he was in that character from the second he showed up till, well, right before he got his face boiled off. But like, I've seen, as we go along this, you will see too, like, every single movie that I have seen Nick Cage in, he gives something that I have never seen before. I've never seen any person in anything ever do the things that this guy does. Like, Vampire's Kiss is a perfect example. Like, when you guys watch that, it's night and day different, but still batshit insane. It's like not even remotely similar to Eddie in the slightest, but still, he adds so many little things that are just like, there's no way that any other actor would have come up with that. So, yeah, I think collectively we're giving him a 7 for this, which is pretty high praise for this piece of shit movie.